SpongeBob SquarePants Mysteries Find a Missing Star. Chapter 6. And that's when it hit me! So we didn't have enough dough to hire a private eye. So what? If we couldn't hire one, I could be one! And so could Squidward! All we had to do was look tough, act tough, and talk tough. Tough as a cheap steak in a lousy diner. How hard could it be to be hard-boiled? If eggs could do it, so could we. Once I had my brainstorm, I couldn't wait to put my partner wise. That's it! SpongeBob squeaked, his voice cracking with excitement. He forced himself to calm down and act cool. We'll be the pirate eye, Squidsy! You and me, partners! We'll crack the case, easy peasy! Squidward frowned. Okay, number 1, don't call me Squidsy. 2, we know nothing about being private detectives. SpongeBob thought about this as he picked himself up off the dusty floor of the hallway. Squidward had a point, but SpongeBob was sure they could be detectives if they tried. Look, Squidward, he said, pacing and thinking. We can pull this off. I know we can. We just gotta act tough. But to act tough, we gotta look tough. I'm gonna run home and change my clothes. You too. We'll dress tough, and then we'll take it from there. My dad always says, clothes make the sponge. Squidward considered it. He remembered that he was supposed to report their progress to Mr. Krabs. Okay, SpongeBob, he agreed. I'll play along, whatever it takes to get through this nightmare assignment. And to get my artwork on the walls of the Krusty Krab during the mayor's big fancy event. He thought to himself. You run along home, and I'll meet you back at your place. Pointing one finger at Squidward and making a clucking sound with his tongue, SpongeBob said, You got it, partner! Don't call me that either, Squidward grumbled. Squidward hurried from downtown Bikini Bottom to the Krusty Krab. He was surprised to see that Mr. Krabs had already draped the front of the restaurant with banners reading, Happy Anniversary, Mr. Mayor! And, Invited guests only. And, unless you're willing to pay. When he stepped through the front doors and into the dining area, he saw more decorations, including a huge framed photo of the mayor and a string of paper top hats like the one the mayor always wore. It looked as though Mr. Krabs was really going all out for this event. Looking at the walls, Squidward imagined his paintings hanging on them, surrounded by crowds of admiring art lovers. He smiled, thinking about all the compliments they heap on him, not to mention the big bucks they pay for his masterpieces. The drawing of himself as a muscular superhero, the painting of himself as an even more muscular superhero, the sculpture of himself as a hero who had superpowers and lots of muscles. Then he snapped out of his daydream and looked around. Mr. Krabs! He called out. Mr. Krabs! Where are you? He looked in the office, the kitchen, and even the bathroom, but didn't find his boss until he opened the back door and looked out at the area behind the Krusty Krab. There he spotted Mr. Krabs setting up dining tables and folding chairs under a big white tent. He'd already thrown a lace tablecloth over the garbage container to hide it. He couldn't hide the strong smell of discarded food and trash, though. What's all this? Squidward asked, puzzled. Ah, Mr. Squidward, Mr. Krabs said when he saw his employee. I'm getting everything set up for the mayor's party. It's going to be a big one. And I don't just mean the fee. He laughed. He snapped open a folding chair, set it at one end of the long tables, and walked over to Squidward. So, how's me little fry cook doing? Find his friend yet? Shaking his head, Squidward said, Not yet, but we're working on it. Now that you're decorating, should I go get my paintings? I got some excellent ideas about where each one would hang inside. Nay, Mr. Squidward, Mr. Krabs growled. Belay that notion. That wasn't the deal. You get me fry cook back, ready to whip up a batch of delicious Krabby Patties, and then we'll talk about your doodles. Doodles? Squidward Squidward said, offended at the term. I'll have you know my paintings are considered fine art. By whom? Mr. Krabs asked. By me, Squidward asserted. Mr. Krabs narrowed his eyes. Tell me something, Squidward. Look around. What do you see? I don't know, Squidward said, shrugging. Tables? Chairs? A tent? A stinky garbage container covered with a tablecloth? Fooling nobody? Nodding, Mr. Krabs said, Very good. Now, do you see Patrick's star? Squidward looked confused. No, of course not. Why would I? He's not here. Then why are you still here? Mr. Krabs roared. You made your report. Go find Patrick! He picked Squidward up by the back of his shirt, ran toward the Krusty Krab, and tossed him out the front door. He landed in a heap of tangled legs and tentacles. And hurry, he added. I need me fry cook! Squidward picked himself up, dusted himself off, and tried to regain his dignity. He snorted. I'm surrounded by barbarians! He trudged off, heading for SpongeBob's house. Once Squidward was gone, Mr. Krabs returned to the dining area. He was sitting up behind the Krusty Krab. Dusting off his big red claws, he chuckled to himself. Arg, that's Squidward. Every once in a while, a good boss has to pick up his employees and toss them around a little. Or a lot. As he resumed arranging the tables and chairs, he heard a faint sound he never heard in his restaurant before. He lifted his head and cocked it to the side, listening carefully. What is that sound? He thought. Could it be ticking? Tick, 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 tick. Curious and a little bit worried, Mr. Krabs started to search for the source of the ticking. In his pineapple, SpongeBob stood in front of a mirror, wearing a rumpled, lightweight beige coat and a brown fedora with a wide black band around the crown. He bent the front of the hat's brim so it pointed down, almost covering his eyes, a figure that made him look mysterious, and he tied the coat's belt around his waist and plunged his hands into the pockets. The battered old trench coat, the tilted hat. To him, it definitely said detective or spy. Now all he needed was a tough look on his face. He narrowed his eyes, closed his mouth, and tightened the muscles in his cheeks. Stay tuned for Chapter 7, coming up soon.